noticing the time and the presence both here and remotely of a quorum, I call the Finance Committee to order. And the agenda for the night, first item would be public comments. And once again, we are undefeated on our public comments. Approval of minutes. Do we have minutes to approve?
Yes, we have multiple rounds of minutes to approve. I don't have them in front of me. I thought you would have them in front of you.
I have them in my email.
Okay.
I could pull them up.
I can as well. Give me just a second.
I forgot to list them on this slide. It was a busy day today.
Yep, understood. Give me just a second. We have a number of minutes.
Sorry, Ellie, I meant to list them here, but you'll have to scribe those.
We have minutes from March 11th, March 25th, April 8th, April 22nd, and May 13th. And I believe we have the meeting minutes from our last meeting as well.
Yep, 6/24.
And did you receive any edits for those?
I have not received any edits on the minutes. I did send them around to everybody.
Indeed. Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend the meeting minutes of March 11th, 2025, March 25th, 2025, April 8th, 2025, April 22nd, 2025, May 13th, 2025, and June
24th. 24th.
June 24th, 2025 at this time.
I have a second. Excellent. So I'll take a roll call vote for approval of the motion. Let me start with Greg, who's online.
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Allison?
Aye.
Corinne?
Aye.
And I myself. So the motion carries. The minutes have been approved for the 6 referenced meeting dates.
And I believe we are only missing one at this time to be completely caught up from last year.
Correct, May 6th. Correct, May 6th. So if you folks remember, that was the second night of town meeting at the Acton Boxborough Regional High School District. And Ellie Anderson had taken those notes. She submitted them to Teresa O'Leary. So similar to these notes is that we'll just retrieve those and send to you for approval.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That was efficient. Moving on. I just have an intern update, if we're done with the minutes, assuming. Met with the interns on Sunday night, and we had intern-to-intern presentation. Just one of the students was unable to attend, so they had some back and forth, and I would say that the group is very close to being ready for showtime, which is fortunate because the next Finance Committee meeting, we will have intern presentations. I'm expecting about eight of the interns to present on the 12th and 3 to present on the 26th. I'm just waiting for confirmation. So our agenda for the 12th is going to be dominated by the presentations. So we will pick up with some of the meat of our agenda at the end of the intern presentations on the 26th. But just as a heads up, they've been working hard, and they have, I think the collection of their presentations actually dovetail into each other very nicely. It's interesting how they all picked independent subjects, and then it does tell a story. So I think it'll be interesting for everybody to witness. So I will move on to the DPW discussion, part 3. I'll wait for Steve to sit down. All right, so first thing on this list, I just wanted to kind of put out here what I've heard from the committee and just confirm or deny any of these statements. I can read through them just to make sure that I'm not missing thoughts from the committee or if I'm misrepresenting anything that has been said before I move on to what I've been talking about before. The first, or my 7 bullets, I guess, why don't we just read them instead of me reading them for people? If you can't read the slide, I can pass around a deck. If there's anything on here that, I'll go around the room here and see if there's any comments or objections to anything I've listed here. I did this kind of last minute, this one slide. And Roland, we just introduced this slide. It's just, it's my attempt to get a summary of the thoughts of the Finance Committee and onto one page. Just not all thoughts, but just some of the thoughts of people. All right, Jason?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I'd like to soften a couple of these comments just a little bit. I know, I just freaked out the rest of the committee. And Mary Ann's face is a shocked look. I love it.
Too much time in the sun.
Oh, yes. I'm feeling fine, I swear. I would like to suggest that on point number 3, rather than saying we're not convinced the structure needs to be demolished, I'd prefer that we say the Finance Committee is not convinced that the existing structure no longer has any value. Okay. Similarly, I would like to make a change to item number 5. The Finance Committee is not convinced that all of the equipment needs temperature-controlled storage. It may be a distinction without a difference, but I don't want to get into an argument with the select board or with the DPW personnel about 51% or 45%. I'm saying that, please, let's use some common sense and let's make absolutely sure that we do not build a temperature-controlled structure for every piece of equipment we own, always and forever. Amen.
I would add to that, not just all of the equipment, but all of the time.
All the equipment, all the time, indeed. So on balance, I absolutely agree with every other statement here. But softening 3 and 5 might be in our best interest.
Thank you. Steve, do you have any other thoughts? Or Jason, if you're done.
No, I'm good with the list as amended.
Is there anything missing from the list from your perspective, Steve?
No, I think 4 needs to definitely be there. We need to separate the staff from the rest of the building. But,
Yeah, I know, I missed a footnote.
You could also space it out with 3 and 4 bunched together there.
Okay. Yeah, Roland, do you have any?
You could combine 3, demolished and is not convinced all staff need to be in the building at the same time. And need to be in the same building.
Just speak up when you're talking, you kind of whisper.
Sorry. No, I'm good with everything else and with Jason's modifications and Steve's.
I agree with everything on the list, including the suggestions we just made. And the only thing that I would add, and it doesn't necessarily need to be added to this, is that even if they come up with the perfect solution, if they're proposing an operating override at the same time, it's still going to be a problem. So I think we also need to take a holistic view of the finances.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but any building project for the DPW will require a vote. It's not an operating override, right? It's the debt exclusion, so that's required either way unless we decide to magically work it into our budget somehow. But even then, I think that the law requires us to fund it in that manner. Right? No, it's not required, okay. But anyway, I think that number one needs to be reworded so we're not conflating facts and opinions. Of course, the opinion statement is stronger when you put a fact in there, but our opinion is that it was not fiscally sound, right? And then I would also recommend that you could make it a lot more impactful if you say, these are our views, and you, instead of saying, we're not convinced this, that, or the other thing, number three is, the existing structure does not need to be demolished, right? Like, so you're just shortening the statements to statements of, these are our opinions.
Okay.
But I think I'm just moving deck chairs around the ship, really.
I think I'd rather be on a cruise, but we've already had the cruise discussion when Greg's in the room, so. Greg, do you have any comments?
Yeah, and just to pick up on what Allison was saying, in item number one, the two facts that I think we can cite without looking like it's an opinion is the previous proposal was rejected by the voters. That's a fact. And town meeting indicated that the primary reason was cost. That is also a fact.
The vote that was taken wasn't a vote, but the poll that was taken at town meeting, I don't think that was necessarily representative of the reasons people had for voting against the operating override, because it's just a much smaller group of people that were there. So I don't think you can necessarily make that.
I agree, but it turns out any proposal has to pass two places. One, the voters in a town election, and two, a 2/3 vote at town meeting. And so in that sense, even though it's, quote, a smaller sample, it's a sample that you need a 2/3 vote for anything to get through. So the two facts here is that it failed at the town election. It wouldn't have gotten a 2/3 vote at town meeting based on the poll that was taken. And when asked why people were no, and yes, the town meeting sample was skewed slightly yes, as opposed to the town election was 56% no. Even with that slight skew in favor of yes, it still wouldn't have gotten the 2/3 based on the poll.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm just saying that there could be the 80% or so people who did not attend town meeting didn't attend because they didn't have to show up to vote against it at town meeting. And that they might have, like I said, for a lot of people, it was timing. So like I said, I just don't think that you can necessarily say that that was the main reason why it didn't pass at the ballot.
Yeah, timing was the number two reason, and cost was the number one. So there were more than one reasons. But again, if you want to avoid this is our opinion versus those are the facts, citing the vote it at least puts the weight of town meeting behind it.
Mr. Chair.
Jason?
I would like to piggyback on what Ms. Hogseth said about timing. Timing does matter. Last year, we were very clear to say it was both timing and scope. So having a mention of timing is a very good idea. The other thing that I would like, and so also I'm all for having all of the statements be as factual as possible on our written slides, but just something for us to consider. And I just want to throw this out there as something that we need to think about, is there is a movement to try and have remote participation or vote from home during town meeting. Wayland has moved towards that. So once a town has moved towards it, then it's possible the floodgates might be broken, and maybe other towns will be able to do so as well. And while I have my theory about what might happen if a wider audience were able to dial in from home versus sitting in those oh-so-comfortable chairs in the high school auditorium, perhaps other people have comments on whether suddenly if we went from a voting populace of 400 to a voting populace of 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000, because people can do so from the safety of their smartphone at home, maybe that will have an impact on how the vote is taken at town meeting. So it's just something for us to consider.
Thank you, Jason. The whole intention of this slide was just so I could make sure that my understanding and what I'm hearing is as accurate as it can be. But this was not the primary intention of my DPW project session 3. So I'm going to move on unless anybody else wants me to stick on this slide any longer. All right. So my next steps. I would like us to, this is, and we don't have everybody here, so I don't know how appropriate this is going to be, but I would like us to have a joint session with the select board to discuss scenarios for the DPW where we can show either pros and cons or a SWOT analysis of different scenarios where both sides can say what they think is positive about it or negative, or why we can't do something or why we should do something. Because I feel like the town and the taxpayers need to understand the path of wherever we end up. And the story I've told numerous people is that it's almost like if you were at your house and someone knocked on your door and they said, well, you got 2 kids in a bedroom, you need to have 2 separate bedrooms, we're going to rip down your house and rebuild it. Your first question is going to be, so, well, why can't I just add a room and not rip down my house? So there's a point where the logic is concluding that you need a new house. But I think we need to walk people from point A to point B and have them understand the options and the scenarios so that they are educated on what is out there, what's possible. So it's not just a binary decision where, it's either we don't do anything or we do something. I just want people not, so that's my thought, and I'd just like to go around the table here and see if people are willing to do this, if they think it's a bad idea or a good idea. So that's what I'd like. Whoever wants to go first.
I don't mind another joint meeting as long as that's what we're doing. I felt like the meetings last year were attempts to, for the select board to convince us to go their way.
Yeah, I'm thinking that, like, for example, if we took the original project, the one that was before it was, so that would, let's say hypothetically, that's one of the scenarios. We have, both sides have listed a laundry list of reasons for and against it. So in that particular case, unless there's new thoughts, we would list the pros and cons, and then we just move on. It's one of those things we can agree to disagree, and just, here's another scenario. We've discussed several different possibilities of different things to do, and I just think that we should, because when I've talked to people about them, there's usually one negative and one positive comment, and I'd like everybody to hear them, and so they can digest them. Anybody else got comments? Allison, Jason, Steve?
just looking at the financial projection of town and school budgets, to me, that's relatively easy to calculate, but based on last year, I think it's harder to get agreement on any kind of a consensus. We certainly didn't reach it at ALG. The select board didn't seem to want to look beyond 27. So if that's a precondition to the next step, then I think we'd have to, I guess, reach consensus on that one before we even considered moving on.
Let me say, Steve, that I've been told that I should be waiting for other things to happen before we have these conversations, but I want to have the conversations because I think we need to talk about this stuff before we get into the budget process and before we get into ALG, and have some running room so that if there's things that we want to investigate, discuss, or explore, we're not up against a wall of a deadline. And that's, so I'm doing things off their schedule, so.
Clearly.
Yeah.
I've been working on this since town meeting, so I'm halfway there. I could give you a town projection pretty easily. And the school budget, I know what their assumptions were when they rolled out their "the sky is falling" forecast. So with a little help from the schools, I could probably put the thing together pretty quickly. Whether anybody agrees with it, that would be another story. I do think, based on last year's ALG process, that until we get to that second thing in line, there's no point in discussing anything further.
Well, I agree on, from the perspective that I don't think in the meeting we would be just saying, we all agree that we should, put the DPW building in this new construction behind, in the parking lot behind the library over here. I don't think we're going to get to a conclusion. I just want to document for the town the pros and cons of the scenarios, have the select board explain their thoughts and rationales, pro and against anything that's proposed, and likewise the finance committee, and just so that it's documented. And I would not expect it to be a very long meeting. I think we should be spending 10 minutes a scenario, go through them, discuss it, document it. We'd have notes on it, it'd be on ActonTV, and if people want to understand scenario for the DPW, they can just reference one meeting and see both sides of the, what's going on. Jason.
To your point, the concept of continuing conversation is always a good idea, and I applaud the effort. But having done 2 of these meetings last year, and at the risk of being very sanguine about it, I believe it's probably a fool's errand. Until you hear back from at least 2, if not 3 members of the select board, that they are open to doing anything other than the project that they put forward last year. And remember, they asked for $150,000 to go market last year's project. They didn't ask to change it, they didn't ask to review it, they asked to market it. Until you hear from at least 2 members, then we're going to end up in the exact same scenario where I believe they came and lectured us at the last meeting before town meeting about how all the ways that we were wrong. So if there is movement to be had, then I'm all for it, and let's have the conversation, let's find that common ground. But if the starting point is still last year's proposal was the only best proposal, and even the select board member who was here a meeting or 2 ago who said that the last proposal was already inadequate and needed to be bigger than it was, well, that's completely anathema to our position. So until you have that level of trust, I'll show up to the meeting. I'll gladly make my comments. I'll gladly participate, but I will not have any expectation of success. And I will also say that the fact that we specifically, unanimously asked not to be part of the ALG statement last year, and we were completely ignored, means that the starting point of the level of trust, in my personal opinion, is zero.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Steve.
we just discussed the fact that there were two reasons that the project failed with the voters. One was the cost, and two was the timing. If we can't agree on what the next 5 years look like operationally and whether we're going to need an override on the operating side as well as debt exclusion, then to look at the project without agreement on the forecast is you're only looking at half the problem. The taxpayers don't see a difference between an operating override and a debt exclusion, because most of them don't have a 30-year horizon. So as far as they're concerned, the temporary debt exclusion is a permanent increase in their taxes. So we can argue the fine points of the difference, but in a practical sense to the taxpayers, they're the same. My taxes are going up. They're going up for the foreseeable future. And, you know, I'll move out of town when my kids are 18, but, you know, so I'll never see the end of this debt exclusion. Now, some of us have lived in town long enough to see them fall off. But it takes more than 30 years.
So what I'm expecting, that the most likely scenario that's going to happen if we were to do nothing is that we're going to be presented with another solution to the DPW building that's going to have a financial impact on the town, and we're going to need to figure out if it fits or it doesn't fit, what the override is, how much it is, the impact to the town, but it's going to be so binary that it's going to be too late to discuss alternatives whenever it's presented, just like last year. It's going to, whatever it is going to be what it is. And I know that I'm not expecting miracles out of the meeting, but I feel like having a dialogue in public over the scenarios will allow people to understand more about the project and what's going on.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
we made it very clear in August of last year that we had no interest in supporting this project.
Oh, I know.
It was not us that waited until the last minute to say, it's too late, it now becomes a binary project. We're going to take it to the voters, and the voters are going to decide.
Yeah.
Oh, too bad, the voters decided, we haven't changed our mind yet. So, again, I'm willing to have the conversation. But if they're not, if the starting point is we're using last year's project, they haven't learned a thing, and we're not interested. I absolutely want to discuss, do SWOT analysis on projects that are being brought forward.
Yeah.
I am not interested in relitigating what already failed when we were told point blank, we're going to let the voters decide because it's too late for us to possibly make a change. When we told them in August of last year, we had no interest. And I would note that Mr. Jarbo has his hand raised.
Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, I hear the conversation. I understand where everyone's coming from because I come from there too. But I'm gonna say there are two leading indicators that will let us know whether they are tone deaf or they heard the voters loud and clear. And one of those is what we see on Thursday night at the DPW Building Committee meeting. It will be the first time we hear what they have in mind. I haven't seen a preview of it, so I have no clue. And it is possible that at that meeting, I will join you in the cynicism of, nope, they haven't heard a word from the public. They haven't heard a word from us. And this is a marketing plan. I know what marketing plans look like. Or they heard us loud and clear. They know they've got to get the costs down, and they They came up with something that isn't on our list of alternatives, but, they too are trying to figure out how to come up with a less costly solution. We don't know. My guess is Thursday night will be a good leading indicator. The second thing that has fundamentally changed from where we were last fall, when frankly they should have started discussions and didn't, is we've had some votes. And one of those votes was at the town election. And 39% said yes, and 56% said no. And pardon me, anybody can read that data. And then the second one, again, I don't want to dismiss the poll that was taken at town meeting because we've never had one of those before. But it did indicate that, yeah, people are split. Some people voted yes, and they indicated why. And some people voted no, and they indicated why. And those cards are now face up on the table. And if cost was an issue, and they come back with something that's as expensive or more expensive, then, pardon me, they weren't listening. That was their survey, not ours. And, I think that's pretty significant. So I think before our next meeting in August, we will have a fairly good sense of, no, they're not listening. We're just going to have to get ready for another confrontation or lack of consensus, or however you want to characterize it. Or, they're trying to figure a way through this too. It's a different way than we might take, but at least we now have 2, 3, 4, 5 different options to come up with a less costly solution.
Thank you, Craig. Anybody else? Allison?
So I'm just thinking, I agree with what others have said, that it seems like a waste of time, because it's not, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not possible to bring forward a DPW project that the select board does not support, right? Like, I guess somebody could make a proposal. I don't know how that would even work, right? So if they're not willing to consider other options, then there's no point in us doing a SWOT analysis on the other options. Or maybe there is. We just do it amongst ourselves so the town can see what that would look like. But if we do move forward with one of these meetings, we need to have a very well-defined agenda, and we need to stick to it.
If the meetings turned out like they were last year, it's a complete and utter waste of time. The first one was ridiculous.
I tried. I swear I tried.
Wasn't blaming you, Jason. We really didn't get through what Bart intended, and then he's like, well, we gotta end it now. And it's like, well, we got halfway there, and then the second one, nothing got accomplished. And I feel true, if the select board doesn't listen to the voice of the voters, what's the point? As I've mentioned before, since I've moved into the town, I've seen my taxes double. My salary hasn't doubled in that amount of time, neither has my wife's. Food's gone up 40% plus. Everything else has gone up. And if you keep raising taxes, my son's going to be out of school in 3 years, and I'm really considering them goodbye, because I need to save for retirement. I'm not going to live 30 more years. I'd be 89, 90. Not happening. So, we got to be respectful of our seniors, right? We heard it time and time and time again in our listening section. The taxes are out of control. You went for a $6.6 million operating override, and then you want to jam a $36 million project down our throats. Got to have it. We need it. We need to have it. We asked for it to be scaled back. Nope, not going to do that. What do you need to store all the equipment inside for? We have to store everything inside. Again, you can build another garage for $50,000 and store half the equipment that you don't need for any season, and put it in there for that season. So I think that in a lot of ways, it's ill-conceived. We do not necessarily need a wash bay on the initial building, nor have the administrative staff and the staffing offices in that building. And a lot of it too there's been a lot of neglect by the town from past management, past select boards. They knew there were issues with the building and they didn't do anything to address it. And now you need to build the most elaborate thing known to man. And as Greg pointed out, other towns did it for a lot less money, and we can too. There has to be a will to do it, and if we're just gonna have meetings that are not gonna get us to point two or figure it out by that, and they don't wanna do long-range planning, shame on them.
Oh, I also wanted to, I was just thinking about this concept of financial capacity. We have a very different view of what that might mean, right? Because it's, I don't want to say it's a blank check, but as long as people vote for it, it doesn't actually affect the town budget, does it? Right? It's just money that comes out of that additional tax from the debt exclusion, right? So if they proposed a $50 million project and we voted yes on it, then the concept of financial capacity is almost meaningless if you can get people to vote yes. And so if we come up with a number, which I feel like maybe we've been asked to do before, but I don't know if it's the right question. But anyway, if we're using financial capacity as something we have to agree on, then that's maybe an even bigger issue than agreeing on what size or type of building to put forward.
The bond rating agencies look at one key factor, and that's what they perceive as the taxpayer's willingness to pay. And they don't get many data points on those. But we got a clear signal that they weren't willing to pay for a DPW building at that price, at that scope. The year before, we got a very mixed signal as to how much they were willing to pay to support what was primarily a school project. So financial capacity is, it's a theoretical calculation, but in practice, what you have to consider is just what will the taxpayers permit you to do? And you can characterize it any way you want, and say it's, whatever, 50 cents a day per household for 30 years, or you can turn it around and say, okay, if you vote for this, every household pony up $10,000 at the end of the meeting. So you can spin it different ways, but the fact of the matter is, we have two data points recent, because we haven't had a data point like this in 20 years, that the voters said no to one and a very weak yes to the other, which says we are reaching our financial capacity.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Allison.
I'd like to also echo something that Jason said, that timing is still an issue. And ironically, the timing we were worried about a year ago was how close it was to the override in 2024. I would argue that the timing we are now worried about is not behind us, it's the one in front of us. Do we need an override next year, the year after that? In other words, we're now looking at a different timing, but timing is still an issue. And that's why, the financial projections are crucial to understand where does this fit in the overall scheme of things.
All right, thank you, Greg. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. I guess the main driver for me pushing this onto the agenda and asking for this meeting is that I heard, after re-listening to town meeting, one of the themes was that the town wanted the finance committee to collaborate with the select board and work with them. And we can't really work with them right now because they're waiting for a consultant to give them guidance, and there's all these things we're waiting for. I feel like the other theme that I heard was that people wanted a better working space for the employees, but I didn't feel myself personally that people understood that there were multiple options for the staff and that there could be other solutions for them. So I would like to communicate to the select board, town manager, that I would like to have this meeting with the select board and figure out how to coordinate that and organize that. And if they accept, hopefully everybody comes in with an open mind and we can just talk about scenarios and pros and cons, and then when we get to a point where we're having more financial discussions, we can dig deeper, but we'll have a backdrop of data showing different scenarios, because I've always said that there's multiple staffing solutions, and I feel when we were getting to the finish line last year that it was just a binary decision. And so I think it'd be useful. I'm going to ask my committee members here if they don't have any issue with me asking for this meeting. I guess I'll just go around the table. I don't think it's a voting item, but just looking for feedback, yes or no. And then assuming a majority, I will reach out to them via email. Dave can communicate, but I'll do email.
I'm always open to communication and conversation. But I stand behind what I said earlier, which is don't come to the meeting with only last year's proposal.
Yeah, I'm always willing to have a discussion, but my proviso would be, don't come to the meeting and say you're only going to look 1 year out for your forecast.
I think we need to have communication, right? We need to keep open lines of communication and build back the trust that was lost last year. Because that makes a stronger town for our citizens. And I agree with both Steve and Jason's points. So I'm willing to go to a meeting and, but they need to come and not just do 1 year out. That doesn't work.
Correct.
Like I said, I'm open to participating in a meeting, but I agree with what Steve's saying here. It's what I said earlier, we need the whole picture. And if we're talking about looking at scenarios now that we drop into place when the, tax situation looks okay, or when the budgets come back into line and they're not going up 5 or 6% a year, then that's fine. But like I said, all that stuff needs to happen first.
I'm fine with attending, but if we're going to do SWOT analyses, we should have sticky notes, right? Sticky notes, okay.
Agreed. Finally, Greg, and then we'll change topics after you're done.
No, I'm all in favor of having this dialogue as soon as we can. The sooner the better. Better to have it this fall than to have it next spring, because that's when the deadlines close off options. What I would also suggest is that while this meeting will be an important one to have between the FinCom and the Select Board, there is a third official committee called the DPW Building Committee, which has an official Finance Committee representative on it. And we may not have a majority representing that particular committee, but it exists too, and they're going to be holding their first discussion since town meeting on this topic Thursday night, and I would welcome as many people as can to come hear it firsthand.
We can't have more than 4?
Oh, no, we can all show up, we just can't ask questions. Or we can't deliberate, We can all show up, we just can't deliberate.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. I'm going to move on. Everybody's good? All right, new topic. My intention is not to spend the next year just talking about the DPW building. as much as that's really enticing for everybody. I want to talk about, there's a lot of other topics to get into, and one of the biggest topics is capital planning, and I'm just introducing the topic here, and I just have a slide. And the intention here is to start off a conversation on capital planning, and with the thought that this will be a multi-meeting conversation. We'll see where it goes, but here's my couple bullets on it. The last capital improvement plan published by the town was December 24. I'm sure that'll be updated this fall. The plan covers all the town items, but it doesn't highlight state-only projects in town. For example, the potential roundabout in front of Acton Medical and the Piper Route 2 intersection. Highlighting the Acton Medical one, I think that's going to create, personally, I think that's going to create a financial impact on the businesses in the area. If we just finish up Kelly's Corner construction and everything's perfect, and then we rip up the off-ramp on Route 2. I don't know all the details on that project, but I'd like to see the state projects lined up with the town projects to see what impact it has on the town, because businesses have suffered in Kelly's Corner, and I'm concerned about the financial impact of these items on the town. Also, speaking of financial impact, what items in the capital improvement plan have a direct or indirect financial impact on the town? Like, for example, at one point, the Kelly's Corner project was in there, and that was to improve things, but we're going to have at least one business moving out of that area, and it's impacted those businesses financially in that corner. And I'm saying this as a factual statement because I've talked to 2 owners and 1 landlord in that area, so I'm not just speaking off the top of my head. So then the other couple thoughts here, like what's the best practice for town capital planning? And then what items should we as a committee be discussing regarding capital planning? So I think it's a big topic, and I just wanted to just start a conversation on it. And if anybody has any thoughts, I'm more than happy to listen here. Greg? Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, just to second your comment, I frequently get pizza at Sorrento's, and did so recently, and they have stopped selling sub sandwiches. All they have now is pizza. And
I had the same miserable experience, Greg. I went there for an Italian sub,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, what do you mean you don't have
Yeah.
Italian subs anymore? Yeah.
So
Sad day.
businesses are feeling the impact. I agree.
I'd like to say that I'm actually very pleased that we received a long-range capital improvement plan. That was something that we've asked for as a finance committee, so I would like to thank the town for doing that. It was a really good start, and I appreciated that they did it, which is why it's also all that much more confounding that they then turned around and put in their projection for the out years that they weren't going to spend a single dime on it when they had multiple tens of millions of dollars worth of want and or need in the project. To then turn around and not claim funding it in any way, shape, or form was absolutely confounding to me. I think that we need to be careful that we don't want to immediately disagree with a plan that was brought forward. So I want to thank them for bringing a plan forward to begin with. I think one of the hardest parts of any capital planning is deciding need versus want. I know I'm a broken record, sorry, Roland. And then secondly, the time to enjoying the benefit, right? So one of the things that I disliked about Kelly's Corner is right from the start, I didn't believe the timing. And even though I know yesterday was her last day, Kristen kept saying, oh, no, it's supposed to be done the fall of 2025. That's not what the original estimate was. I know because we were paying attention to how it would impact our kids going to the high school campus. So let's also try and not ignore reasonable estimates of time to enjoyment of the benefits rather than just constantly ripping up this town. I mean, I feel like in the last 7 years, this town has been ripped up systematically, piece by piece by piece, and it would be very nice to just put a pause on some of this complete ripping up of everything.
I think one of the items that needs to be discussed is the fire department. Where we were told we need to build a North Acton fire station, we have a gap in coverage. And then what do they do recently? They close the one in the center. And one in West Acton. And that's a big concern. There's businesses in West Acton, ambulance service coverage. You see fire trucks more and more going up and down Main Street all the time. Somebody has a heart attack and the ambulance is out, and the other one is North Acton, and somebody's in West Acton or in South Acton, and has to go from North Acton, it takes time. Same with apparatus and a fire, as we've seen. So it's kind of like we solved the problem, and then we just added to a problem again. Now, I understand the building's old, but I really think that needs to be staffed with a minimum with an ambulance and a crew in the center. So, yeah, our infrastructure's old. We get it. Those buildings need to be addressed. There's a lot of issues with them. They're old. I get it. So I think that is one of them that we need to pay attention to and that the town needs to work on. And I really feel they should have the center fire station open because it's in the center of the town. So we really got to look at that. We got to look at also long-term equipment replacement of fire trucks, ambulances, police cruisers, other police equipment. And one other last item is we had them talking about the stormwater and the culverts and things like that on roads and sidewalks. A lot of our sidewalks are in bad shape, but we got to build more. And we haven't maintained what we have. And that's, again, as Jason pointed out, that I always point out, needs versus wants. If it's a want, I don't need it. If it's a need for the town to ensure safety and the health and the operation of the town, then it's something that we need, and we need to address it.
Well, getting back to with Kelly's Corner thing and the impact on businesses, to me, it seems like we're losing business in town, not just at Kelly's Corner. In looking at the report from the consultant that the EDC hired, a lot of good statistical information in there and some good ideas, but it seemed to me a lot of it came down to sewer capacity, especially along 119. So there you're talking significant expenditures. One, we don't have a plant nearby. Don't know that we have a site where we could put one up. And the last time I checked, underground, piping is about $1 million a mile. And that's just the street, not the laterals. Price has probably gone up, and then you come to the disruption of existing business. You think about what's going on in Kelly's Corner, then you think about all of Great Road, 119 being dug up for 5 years, how many of the businesses along there will survive? So I think the capital planning has to look at quite a few variables, and some of them are pretty hard to actually calculate. after we get done putting sewers along Great Road, will any of the existing businesses still be viable? Can they wait that long? Will there be new businesses willing to jump in when it's done? If you have sewers, you'll get more restaurants, because right now you can't have any along there. But is it going to make a big deal to other retailers? Are there going to be any other retailers in 5 or 10 years? They're disappearing fast. So I wish it were as simple as looking at infrastructure and age and saying we need to replace things, but long-term capital planning gets a lot more complicated.
Thank you, Steve. This side?
I have a question about the roundabout. That's not a done deal, is it?
I don't know. I saw a presentation on it.
I've
I was
heard about it.
surprised, I was surprised about it. I heard, and I don't know what the final words are on it. David, do you know? Sorry to call you, but you probably know more than I do, so.
It's the working design by the DOT. I don't know that it's the final word, but that's the working design.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, can I address the selectmen?
It says we've called them.
Okay.
Yes.
So, David, state has a TIF or transportation infrastructure plan or something like that. Does it have a year associated with it, or is it, like, is it 5 years out, 10 years out?
As far as I know, that one has not hit the schedule.
Okay, so
But
it's a ways out then.
I could look it up if, and get back to you in the future.
Thanks, sorry, Dave. What is the impetus for having that, for having the DOT do that? Why do they want to put a roundabout there? I don't know
heard the
what's-
answer to this. The answer is that the state is upset or feels there's an issue with the traffic backing up on Route 2. That was the reason that I heard for the need for the roundabout, because then it was, whatever the plan is in theory going to alleviate that pressure.
Well, when they had the Route 2 and Piper Road, when they had that meeting here, the state felt, well, the speed's not a problem. Cars come around that corner at 60 miles an hour, but that's not a problem. They don't do that. That's what the state said, and everybody's like, did you go out and actually look at it? Well, we looked at it, but they didn't do anything consistently. They don't have any correct studies done. And that is a huge problem there. And so, yeah, maybe there's a little bit of a backup, but I don't think a roundabout's going to solve that problem.
But the main point of me just even mentioning that is that everything in the town is connected, and I think we are all agreeing on that. And I want to make sure that my whole point was to, the things that the town's not doing that impact the town, we still need to keep them in scope because they're still going to impact us. Whether this happens or it doesn't happen, or there's something else in the town that potentially has an impact financially in an area of the town, I just feel like when we're looking at things, like, in theory, if everything I've ever heard in the last year or so were to happen in the stretch from my house, which is right by this building, and the school, we could have complete streets, a roundabout at the end of Hayward Road, or a traffic light. We have the building of the 40-unit construction building, a dog park on one side of the highway. The other side would be a roundabout, just as Kelly's Corner is finished up and buttoned up and ready for traffic to go there. No one will want to go down 27. So, I just think everything's connected, and we just need to understand it. Go ahead, Brett.
Sorry, I didn't mean to open up a Pandora's box, but I think it's a colossally bad idea. Anyway,
Yeah.
my question, though, I guess, or comment with regard to the capital improvement is, I can't remember what the report was from 2022, that was about, I've gone back to this so many times, electrifying all the buildings in town. And how much of that overlaps with the capital improvement plan, I'm not sure. I've looked at that, and I just can't remember. But I just get back to anytime there, it's the same thing with the HVAC system for this building. I asked for a couple times an actual analysis showing that the plan they wanted to put in was the most financially reasonable plan, like the cheapest plan, basically, for taxpayers. And it's not a rhetorical question. It's like, I actually want to see the numbers and the analysis. They had it for the DPW building. I don't know why they don't have it for this building. And I think they should have that for any place that they're talking about putting in, a green energy system.
There was actually a recent national analysis done. I saw an article published that shows converting your household HVAC to one system or another, particularly looking at heat pumps. And does it make sense to use heat pumps? And it shows it, across the country, whether or not it makes financial sense compared to natural gas, right, or other options. So I can send that to you if I can find it. It's really interesting, but I can't remember, I think Massachusetts is pretty neutral compared to some other locations where, like if you're in Texas, you might as well use the natural gas, right? Because it's a lot cheaper.
All right, thank you, Allison. All right. So more to come on this. I'd like the committee here to think about topics, subjects in here, and then the next time we have, if you could send me ideas to further discuss as a team here, and then we can prepare and discuss as we dig into this. One of these items that Corinne just mentioned is going to show up in my liaison report, which I'm going to get to next. I'm going to just jump to that. Select board meeting, Corinne and I both participated, watched, I was here until 8:15, the select board meeting, but since we're on that topic, like towards the latter part of the meeting, there was a business plan presented for an indoor pickleball tennis court near the church, 45 Nagog Park. And, pickleball tennis court, I feel like that'd be a nice business, demand for the town. But one of the obstacles that they ran into at the end of the meeting with the select board was, and they had a lot of reasons for the fact that they had to use gas heat instead of having, since it was new construction, the town guidelines is to be green. And they were looking for a variance or a way to just go with their gas. And they, like, if you watch the meeting, you'll have a better understanding of it than I'm saying here. But that's, the green approach is part of the capital plan, and it's part of the agenda. And, here's an example of a business that has a material reason why they can't, obey that rule. I just think it's, when we talk about financial impacts of the town, if this business decided that they couldn't be here because of that, then that's tax revenue lost. The other items covered in the select board, there was a action for a pro-action project. The health services and the DAI office combined got about 90 grand in the grant. They're going to do a study that has to be turned in by July of 26 to the group that I guess they are getting the grant from. And they're going to look for recommendations that come out of this study. She'll piggyback on me here for my color on this. And then there was a presentation from Acton Power Choice regarding the increase in the cost structure. Select board voted to keep costs the same and use the renewable energy credits as an offset. The town manager gave his update at the senior center, which I watched this morning, and he spoke about the good news, which is the Kelly Corner project was going to be completed soon, and that 2026, that area will be, should have be inviting for business, and the work that's being done by Ace Hardware should be done before school starts. And then I had to leave. So.
So I had a couple comments on some of those things too.
Yeah.
I hung up during the consent agenda stuff because I was tired. They call it the DEI and HHS project you talked about, it's called the Action for Proaction, or Acton for Proaction Project. And it's in the HHS group got a $40,000 grant to do a community health equity needs assessment. DEI got a $50,000 grant for an equity audit. And I still don't know what problems we're trying to solve in this town on that front. And it seems to me we've hired people whose job is to get grants to create work for themselves, to write reports that they then have to give back to the person who gave them the grant. I just don't know what problem this is solving. So that's my personal comment on that. The Acton Power Choice rate increase, they had two options. And so I guess right now they call them what, RECs? Is that what they call them? The
Renewable
energy credits, thank you. And so right now, if you do, you can get like just the basic stuff if you do Acton Power Choice, or you can get the one with the 43% green, or you can go 100% green. And if they stay with the 43% green, the price would go up, but to keep the price the same, they could go down to 23%. And so they voted to do that, which I was happy they did, because people if it's really important to them to have the 100% green, they can pay for it. But, and I guess you have it's only for 16 months, and then they have to go out and do negotiations. But one of the things that highlighted to me again is that the green energy is a premium. And if it's a premium for ratepayers, I can't imagine how it's not a premium for all of the projects they want to do in this town as well. So those were the main points I got from that meeting.
May I ask a clarifying question? With regard to Kelly's Corner, it says that the street work by ACE is going to be completed before school starts. What about the street work that goes in front of the school campus and by Baker Oil and all the rest of that fun stuff? Is that going to be done by the fall, by the time school starts in 2026?
My memory from, my
2025.
memory was that.
Sorry, yes, 2025.
My memory from, and I was multitasking. My memory when the town manager spoke about it, it sounded to me that Kelly's Corner was going to be done by the end of the year, but I don't remember him saying before school starts. I specifically remember him saying the work by Ace Hardware would be done before school starts, but I don't recall him, I don't remember the details exactly.
I'll go back and listen to it again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Remember, it was not, David, do you have the detail? Thank you.
Thank you. So there are two different projects. The project at Main and Prospect, that is a 6-week project, and that'll be done before school starts. Completely separate contractor project, funding, everything from Kelly's Corner. That's a town project. Kelly's Corner is a state project.
And that's the Ace Hardware one?
That's
I
correct.
referenced. Thank you.
The Kelly's Corner project was always scheduled to be done December 2025. It's still on track for December 2025 for everything except planting the landscaping.
December is not fall.
Can I ask, do you have a question?
If you will take it.
If you will, if you don't mind. I'm sorry, it's about the roundabout proposal. Is that the DOT is telling us this is going to happen, or do we have some say in that?
So for any project that happens in town, they come to town and do input sessions, just like they did for Main and Piper. And that usually happens twice. I can't say. I'm not
Has
part
it
of-
happened twice? Has it happened yet?
Not one that I've attended, so that project is probably not as far along as Main and Piper.
Mr. Chairman, on the pickleball tennis court, so this is Marcus Lewis Tennis Center.
That's correct.
Is he talking about building a permanent structure? Because right now he leases 4 courts from Nagog Woods condominium. He puts a bubble up for the winter. So
I would not say I'm the expert to advise on exactly the plan. I was highlighting that it was presented and that there was a hold or an issue with the fuel being used to source everything there, and that facing the, the green mandate from the town, that it might give them a setback.
No, I'm only curious because the bubble he has is probably 15, 16 years old. He may not want to move that equipment, but I would think it would be more economic to keep the hot air in there by gas than by electric.
Oh, that's,
And so it wouldn't be like a new thing. It would be
yeah.
moving.
I think this is
like-
going to be a solid structure. There's not going to be bubbles on this new one.
Hmm?
It's not going to be a bubble on this new one, right? You're going to correct me? I thought he said it's going to be a solid structure.
The courts are proposed to be an air-supported structure.
So a bubble.
A bubble, if you will. And what they call the clubhouse, which has the entryway as a solid building. But the courts are an air-supported structure. Actually, I think 2 air-supported structures.
Yeah, so right now, he has, one bubble covers 4 courts, and he's allowed to use the Nagog Woods Clubhouse for bathrooms for his members. So you're really not creating something new, you're creating, relocating something.
I didn't realize that, Steve. I was more focused on, I was thinking about the capital plan, and I know
Yeah.
that the green initiatives in the capital plan, and I saw this as an item that,
No, he,
getting an exception.
I know Marcus well, he's already come before the Nagog Treatment Facility to get sewer capacity, and we granted it, so.
Okay, thank you. Corinne, you all set with, any other liaison reports? Jason?
This is going to be a partial EDC report because I don't have my full notes with me. Unfortunately, I did not grab my laptop before coming out here, so this is just the EDC report that I could remember off the top of my head. First is that there are going to be 2 new restaurants in the current Trader Joe's Plaza. One will be replacing KJ's Cafe, which is closed. The other one will be to the left of the golf, between golf and Trader Joe's. There'll be another restaurant in there.
I have the names of both if you need them.
No, I'm just letting you know there's restaurants coming. And then there's also going to be an Indian restaurant moving into the Woods Hill Plaza. So that is a net new 2 restaurants to the town of Acton. We all, of course, wish them well. The EDC did say that their focus for this coming year, they had 2 focuses, 2 items of great interest. One is 2A, and the other is South Acton, the first one being Great Road. And they specifically revisited the topic of just how important sewerage is to Great Road. I purposely kept my mouth shut during the entire EDC meeting. I'm going to do that for at least the next meeting, maybe 2, because I don't want to come in and lay down my particular opinion. So I'm going to request that the Finance Committee review this topic. If sewering 2A is their priority, again, it brings up all the same problems that were discussed the last time sewers came to town meeting and failed, which is there a way to fence this off to be business only? Or is this going to be a boondoggle for anybody who happens to have a small parcel of land that they can then turn into a 10-unit residential structure, thus completely undermining the purpose of this, which is the purpose of the EDC is to help increase commercial usage in the hopes of therefore shifting its, at least incrementally, the commercial versus residential taxation. If you take a commercial lot and you give it by right the opportunity to put in a whole lot of residential because now there's a sewer on board instead of needing to have enough leach fields out back for the number of bathrooms that you want to have, then the law of unintended consequences could completely undermine what you're doing. So I would, before I go back to the EDC and say that the Finance Committee is leery of this, I'd like us to discuss this, not necessarily at this meeting, but that's a bug that I want to put into your ear. The takeaway for the committee is they're focused on sewerage for Great Road and trying to figure out how to do the best they can to make South Acton more like West Acton. Restaurant week's coming up. They're definitely trying to decide if they want to have some kind of competition between different groups. I'm sure we can have some friendly competition when the time comes on that one. And then the other thing that, the only other thing that I can remember off the top of my head, and again, this is an incomplete liaison report, and I apologize for that. The only other thing I can come up with off my top of my head is that the Shop Small initiative this year, they want to have start the week before Thanksgiving to make sure that they get in advance of all the Black Friday goodies. And they're gonna try and keep it open all the way through the second week or the middle of January, both for people who are coming back and returning, redeeming gift cards or making exchanges or whatnot, and for some of the holidays that fall after Christmas and New Year's. So I believe this is going to be an expanded calendar of Shop Small, starting a week before Thanksgiving and running into the middle of January. And I will have the full EDC liaison report next time I bring my laptop.
Thank you, Jason. And your comment reminded me, Tom, in the meeting this morning with the senior, at the senior center, mentioned that I guess there's a concert series. I might need help from David on this. Narrow concert series, and there is a window where if you go to a restaurant in town and you bring your receipt, you get $5 off of the purchase of a ticket. David, do you have the exact specifics on that? I'm very sketchy on that.
So first of all, the concerts are listed at actonrec.com. And second, if you, when you buy your ticket at the concert, if you show a receipt from a restaurant that day, you'll get $5 off the ticket. If you've already purchased your ticket online, I'm told that there'll be some kind of voucher for your next concert. So that's my understanding.
Thank you, David. Any other liaison reports? Allison?
Water District,
Okay.
just from the last few. So the town, or I guess the Water District has received funds regarding the 3M PFAS settlement. And I believe they've set up a working group to decide how to use those funds. So, take a look at their website if you're interested in looking at how they plan to use those. I believe they're going to save most of it for remediation efforts in future so that, we're using those funds for sort of like the purpose they were intended for. The second thing is they're still continuing to discuss the possibility of joining the MWRA, which is the Massachusetts Water Resource Authority. Is that what the A is, right? And it's just, I think at this point, there are a couple of neighboring towns or nearby towns that are engaging a consultant to just explore what does the path to joining look like. And so at one point, I think we were going to partner with, I think it was either Maynard or maybe Ayer was going to engage a consultant to, again, understand the cost, what's the timeline, all the different considerations. And they've delayed, I think they've delayed their engagement. So everything has been delayed. They're still discussing it, still considering it. And I missed the last meeting, so I'll have to see where they ended up on their plan for that. But it's still on the table, something they're considering.
Just so you know, 11 years ago, this was brought to town meeting, and it was voted down at that time as well. The number at the time was positively eye-popping, north of $100 million to join the MWRA.
But I think the idea is that if enough towns together want to do it at the same time, that, the marginal cost per town goes down, right? If they were going to pipe everything out down Route 2 or wherever it would go. But. $495, I think. $495? I'm just trying to think of what connects, which roadway would connect those towns. Anyway, they're still considering it.
What's old is new again.
All right, okay. No other liaison reports?
Just no new news on the regional school committee front. And I've already let everyone know about Thursday's meeting of the DPW Building Committee. The only other new information I also forwarded to the Finance Committee members tonight, there was an article this afternoon in the New York Times Online, which I assume will be in the print version tomorrow, about the impact of tariffs on steel. Tariffs initially went up 25% back in March. They then went up 50% as of the beginning of June. And those costs are now beginning to appear in a construction project. So all that information is in the link in the article that I shared with everyone.
Thank you, Greg. All right, I'm going to move on to my open items.
Open.
I still have two. Still got two open items from June 3rd. The town manager did get back to me on an answer to one of the questions I asked. He told me that I could not have access to the pharmaceutical claims data. So that's where that stands right now. I'm waiting for 3 more answers from him. And on DPW project, I did get a response on the equipment, but I'm looking to get my questions vetted before I formalize what was received. I just have a couple more questions, but I'm going to hopefully connect with the select board member to answer what should be kind of simple questions. But that's where that is. And next meeting is going to be dominated by several interns presenting projects that they've worked on. Their presentations are going to be 5 minutes long with 10 minutes for questions. So they're not going to be book reports. They've worked hard on these, and there are some very good topics and subjects that are going to be very interesting. For example, there is one person doing a Buy Acton campaign project, which ties into things that David was mentioning that we're talking tonight. And there are 10 other subjects. So not to give away the farm here or give everything away before they present. So let's see. Who is our? I think it's me. I think it's you.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
Roll call. Greg.
Aye.
Jason.
Aye.
Steve. Aye. Roland.
Aye.
Bryn.
Aye.
Allison.
Aye.
Me. Aye. Adjourned. Thank you.